and then on my phone. So I'm hoping that we should be able to be done before it goes off.
Say
Okay.
we are not having light.
The same matter, eh? Where is that?
Up now.
Oh, wow. Did you guys have the rain we had yesterday?
Yes, please.
Okay. Quite strangely, Ghana or South Africa is the only place where when rains fall or when some small wind blows, the first thing to go off is the electricity. I've been wondering why and what type of engineering our engineers have been learning that they cannot just solve this. Because if that was the case, I'm sure that those who were living in the temperate areas and in Europe and in the Arctics with all the extreme weather conditions, then they would never have had lights. Japan with all their typhoons and their tornadoes, earthquakes, they never get lights on. But here, any small wind blows, any small rain falls, and then light goes off, and it's a normal. In fact, it is rather abnormal if the light stays on, you know.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Anyway, let's come back to do our research methods and leave that one for the gods. Right. So today we'll be doing what? Reviewing literature in research methods. I think over the past weeks, we have been engaging in a very um, fruitful adventure trying to explore the canons of good scientific research. I think we've done the research methods and what goes into it. Last week we did a bit of ethics, and maybe by way of quick recap, can someone or can the class just refresh our memories on what we did on ethics last week when we met? Was it last week we met face to face?
Yes, sir.
Right. So we did ethics in research, isn't it? So what were some of the key takeaways that we still hold on to now so that we can proceed with our journey on the literature review? Quick one. Brown, Nobel,
That
Sarah.
okay.
Sir,
Yeah,
please, we
last week.
um, we spoke about the common ethical violations,
Yeah.
which are the privacy breaches, data falsification, and then the no consent. Yes, no consent.
Okay. Right. Um, that was true. We also looked at how these violations take place and at which level of the process in which they occur. That's it.
Yes, sir.
All right. What again? Who can add to what Sarah just said? Any more? Mr. Andrews, Nyako, can you tell us what you did last week? What you got out of it?
Ethics is a framework that ensures research is conducted responsibly. Hello.
Repeat yourself. Come again.
And that ethics in research is a framework that ensures research is conducted responsibly and with
Right.
integrity.
Yes. Yes. Good. Okay. Any more? Last. Ojo Francis. Collins Odro. And tell us what you took away from last week's class. We're all in the class. We did a very good collaborative good work, group work together. So it shouldn't be a problem trying to recap. Yes, Elvis. Emmanuel.
Sir, I was part of those who came later. We were not in. We didn't get the information early, so we came later after the class.
Oh, you missed the class. Sorry. Okay. And then who else? Edu Desmond.
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Yes.
So, sir, again, we took a look at some core principles in relation to ethics in research, and we spoke about informed consent, and I think data protection and respect for participants.
Yeah. That's right. Okay. All right. Good. So, and today we'll be doing the review in the literature review process. We are going to embark on a very engaging adventure to appreciate one of the most critical components of your research journey. Okay, so which is the research methods. Let me begin first with this very important statement that if your literature review is weak, your entire research process collapses. So it does not even matter how very interesting your topic is. It does not even matter how innovative your ideas are. Without a very strong literature review, I'm saying that your work will lack what? A very strong academic grounding. All right. So I want us to be very clear on how we will be approaching our lecture session today. As usual, it won't be a 2-hour lecture session. Instead, it will be a participatory session. And so I would urge you to think, to engage, to challenge the ideas, and let's work collaboratively. So that by the end of this session, you should not only be understanding what a literature review is, you should understand how to do what, to think like a researcher when engaging very well with your literature. Okay. So our session today's objective will be to understand literature review, to identify the sources of literature, to learn how to synthesize literature, to develop frameworks, and then to also apply referencing. Okay. So if I may ask, let me start with this fundamental question. What is a literature review? Okay. What is a literature review? For those of you who have had a bit of experience to do or conduct academic research, what do you have? What an idea or understanding do you have prior to this session? Can you share what you think a literature review is? Who has any experience in conducting a research and has conducted a literature review before? Yes. Anyone? Anyone? If it's no, let's just say no, and then we can proceed. Anyone?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. So should I take it that the class does not have any appreciation, understanding of what literature review is? Okay.
So we have at least a little understanding.
Yes. Please share that little understanding. Let me know what you
Please,
understand. What is
is the summary of existing, let's say, what others have done in that domain that you are working in. So the topic that you are treating, what others have done.
Okay. What others have done.
Yes, sir.
It says that a literature review is what? A review of what others have done on the topic that you want to research about. Is that what you say, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. So you are spot on in that submission, and I will build on this. So a literature review is not only a summary of articles in your field or in the topic that you want to research or write about, okay? It's what? It's a very critical and systematic engagement with the existing scholarly work that is relevant to your research topic. Okay, I repeat it again. I'm saying that it's a critical and systematic engagement with the existing scholarly work relevant to your research topic. So what does that mean in practice? It means that you'll be doing what? Three things. You are identifying what is known. So as a researcher, you have a topic you want to conduct your research on, okay? You want to be critical and systematic in engaging with what? Existing scholarly work within your domain. So you want to do something on blended learning adoption in Ghana, all right? So you want to first do what? Engage with the existing research. So you would have research that would have been carried out by people before you in that particular area. Okay. So you will be identifying what is known. So blended learning adoption in Ghana. Are you following? And you want to look at faculty blended learning adoption. So you are looking at faculty, lecturers, the adoption of blended learning in teaching and learning in higher education institutions. You want to conduct a literature review. So you are identifying what is known. So you go into the body of knowledge in the repositories and in the databases to identify what researchers within that area have said. So, for example, within that space, if you were to do a review of literature within that area, you would come across authors such as myself, all right, who have conducted extensive research on faculty blended learning adoption in Ghana and have set the pace in certain areas. And so you would review what I have said within that area, what I think of my research, empirical research about faculty member adoption is, okay? So you want to identify what is known, okay? And then you want to examine how it is known. And you are identifying what remains unknown, okay? So after identifying what, for example, I have said on that faculty blended learning adoption area in Ghana, there are other researchers like Adakwa and co, there is Loglo and co, Malcolm and co, okay, within that area. The area would have been very saturated with some rich research, okay? But you would have to, in your research, in your review, be able to identify what also remains unknown. Okay, so the literature review answers one very powerful academic question. What do we know? All right, what do we know? And what do we still need to know? Okay, what do we know in terms of the knowledge area within that field? And what do we still need to know? So it is that what we still need to know is where it opens up a space for you to ground or situate your research in. Okay, that is the gap that is exposed by the research for your work to sit in. Now, many students actually think that, and not even just students alone, very inexperienced researchers, think that literature review is written like maybe author A said that, author C said also something. That is not literature review. Okay, that is more basically in tune into like storytelling. A proper literature review, all right, pay attention, must compare studies. Okay, must compare studies. So faculty blended learning adoption in Ghana higher education institutions, you would find Antwi Boampong 2021, 2022, 2019, 2018, all 2023, 2024. These are very, very detailed, well-researched academic output from me in that field. Okay. Now you get other authors within that field who in Ghana and outside internationally would have done some work within that field. So your literature review must compare these studies. Ahmed, Frank, Malcolm, Adakwa 2023, let me say who, Jagger 2021, Kwame Tete 2010, there are studies within that area. You compare them. You evaluate the methods that they used in arriving at their findings. Okay, you compare them, you identify contradictions. So Boampong, which is more recent in 2023, said that faculty blended learning adoption is one of the key or core components of faculty adoption is motivation. And so he used motivation hygiene theories. Okay, but Malcolm 2021, identified trust or time as one of the core components of motivating factors for faculty adoption. He used a quantitative method or approach, all right? So you compare the studies, you identify contradictions. What kind of contradictions are you looking at? You are looking at, in Antwi Boampong 2024, he found out that motivation was core. Malcolm 2021 found time as central. These are contradictions, all right? And so you synthesize patterns across the literature, all right? That is where your academic maturity grows and you are able to come out with a literature within that body of knowledge, all right? Within that body of knowledge, so that I can make a contribution in advancing that body of knowledge. So your literature review should not just be a gathering of gibberish, a gathering of material just for its sake. It must show a consistent, line of academic output from the field. Okay, that is comparing the studies, evaluating them, and coming out with a rich body of synthesis that shows a certain pattern in an area where your contribution can be built on. Okay, so the core question, please take note. I'm saying what is known, how it is known, and what is unknown is the very ethos or foundation of literature review. Is that okay? Right. So let me do a quick engagement here. By asking this question, with what I have said so far, even if you are a novice researcher or you haven't come across literature review, with the few minutes that I've just given you the foundation or the base of literature review, what in your mind, do you think literature review is? And why do you think many students struggle with literature review? Okay, you're a class of 15 students with this knowledge or your foreknowledge. What do you have? What do you think, make students struggle with the literature review? If you can give me some feedback, then we can pick on them and build as we continue the lecture. So give me some feedback. Elvis, George, Sarah. The literature review. What in your view is the most challenging aspect of it and why students would struggle doing the literature review from what I've just said? Desmond, Prince, Emmanuel, any idea?
There.
Yes.
Because I think what is unknown is why a student will struggle to know what literature review is.
Okay. What is unknown? Now, how do we go about unearthing what is unknown? Right. So we would answer those questions on how to unearth what is unknown. Okay. Now let's deepen this. The literature review serves multiple purposes. Okay. And so in our discovery or in our journey to discover what is unknown, this purpose must clearly be underscored. First, it establishes context. What do we mean? We mean that it shows where your study fits in the broader academic conversation. All right. A literature review is supposed to establish your context. So, ab initio, if you intend a researcher, a student embarks on an academic frolic to investigate, to explore, to design, and so on and so forth, there has to be a solid foundation of literature that establishes the boundaries and the context of which you want to conduct your research. So let me go back to my faculty blended learning adoption in Ghana, for example. And so literature within that particular context would have reviewed copious literature of academic outputs that presents outputs from faculty blended learning. So you wouldn't have review of material that talks about what? That will be talking about, if you like, quantum physics, or maybe talking about higher education policy in Ghana, or talking about institutional mechanism. No, the context will be clearly delineated. All right. It shows where your study would fit within a broader academic conversation. Mind you, research earlier in our previous in our previous lecture, we said that one of the cardinal pillars of research is that what it must contribute to, must have a purpose of contributing to knowledge and society, isn't it? And so your research, your literature review establishes a certain context that anchors your study within a broader academic conversation. So blended learning adoption is a huge conversation going on locally, internationally, within the academic community, all right? And so once you are embarking on that conversation, you are tapping from a broader body of knowledge that is already advancing the conversation. Okay. Then secondly, too, it justifies your research problem. Okay. It justifies your research problem. You are not only choosing a topic. Okay. You are identifying a gap. And so if you come up with a research problem, faculty in Ghana, in higher education institutions are not adopting blended learning. Okay. Even as management has spent huge amounts of money to try and deploy learning management systems and module systems to help facilitate teaching and learning. All right. That is your research problem. Okay. Your literature review, okay, must identify a gap within this space. And so, for example, in all your review that you looked at for faculty blended learning adoption, okay, you found a lot of research in that area. But you would notice that within that body of knowledge or the context you set for yourself, you realize that there is very little research on how faculty adopt blended learning. It is your literature review, okay, that will help in the justification of your research problem, and it would help you identify a gap. So you would have reviewed maybe hundreds or thousands of literature within that area, and consistently in your mind, you realize that, no, why is everybody talking about student blended learning adoption? The body of knowledge within that area is so rich, okay? They're also looking at management, how institutions at higher education institutions help deploy learning management systems for faculty for blended learning adoption. All right. You read this material and you notice that, yes, quite strangely, the conversation, is limited to these two stakeholder groups. And you begin to ask yourself, but what happens with the faculty members? These are the moments you have, these are your eureka moments. That is when you realize that there is a gap in the literature. And so the review helps you to justify your research problem. And I'm saying that it also helps you to identify what? A gap. So beside the purpose of helping you establish a context, it also helps you to justify what? Your problem through the identification of a gap. Thirdly, too, it helps to refine what? Your research questions. All right? In that, with the literature that you have read, the gap that you have identified, all right, it would help you to generate your questions. You will not only be guessing, but you will be grounding your research questions on the absence or the paucity of literature within that area, such that your findings would be contributing to addressing that gap. Is that okay? So you will not be guessing, You'll be building on existing knowledge to be able to help shape your research questions. Okay. Again, too, the literature review's purpose is to help support your theoretical and conceptual framework. All right. This is where your study gets its intellectual foundation, because in the literature that you would have reviewed, you would notice patterns through your evaluation and synthesis. You would notice theories that other works used, okay, and would give you a certain idea on the theoretical foundations of the works that have been done within that field. All right. And then finally, it demonstrates what? Academic credibility. That a very good literature review gives credence to the output of your work. That it shows that you have gone deep into the body of knowledge within that area, and so the academic credibility of the output is enhanced. Is that okay? So that when someone reads your work, they will say, yes, the researcher knows the field. Okay. So your literature review is not just a chapter. It is what your academic, if you like, identity. Okay. Right. But what are the sources, or what sources, or what type of sources are available for your literature review? Where do we get them from? All right. We classify these sources into what? The primary sources, secondary sources, and tertiary sources. What do we mean? Primary sources here, I'm talking about original research. So primary sources would be investigations or publications by other researchers within that area, faculty blended learning adoption again. Primary research would be my research outputs, because I would have done an empirical investigation within that area. All right. So that would make primary contribution to that area. Secondary sources are the reviews and then interpretations. Okay, what do I mean by the reviews? So there are other body of knowledge within that area that goes about reviewing or synthesizing research within that area. So they become secondary. They do not require primary sources like interviews and surveys and so on and so forth to get their outputs. They rather combine literature and outputs, academic outputs, and synthesize them and communicate or contribute to that area by way of their output. So let me give you an example, a very clear example of a secondary output. Now, if you were to, let me see if I can share my screen and give you a typical example so that we'll all be on the same page. Is that okay? Um, um, yeah, are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Class with me?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let me see if I can get you an example of this. So So let me give you, can you see my screen?
Yes, but the types of sources,
Oh,
the slide.
you can see, is the slide you can see?
Yes, please.
Oh no,
Yes, sir.
hold on. Let me close this, stop sharing this. And then let me share this. It's important that I let you see what's right. Okay, so can you see my, okay, you can see my Google Scholar screen.
Yeah.
All right, so let me use myself example. All right, so this is my academic Google Scholar screen, right? Here captures all my academic research outputs. Okay, and so as you can see, I was telling you my research outputs into blended learning, transnational education, technology adoption, and blockchain technologies. So my most recent research was in learning in context, faculty adoption of blended learning through a socio-constructivist and ecological lens. All right. So this would constitute a primary source in that if I open it this way and just go through the abstract, all right, it tells you that the study explored factors influencing faculty adoption of blended learning at a public university in Ghana, right? Now, data were collected through semi-structured interviews. You see it? So this is a primary source in that it's a research that communicates an empirical study of a particular case site of a public university in Ghana. Primary source. Now let me take you to what I mean by the secondary sources. All right. So that here, secondary sources, I'm saying that secondary sources are a synthesis or collection of several of these primary sources, so that rather than going to interview and investigate for empirical contribution, there is a type of research that synthesizes this research and communicates. So you have meta-analysis, you have systematic analysis, and so on. So let me give you an example. Systematic analysis. Okay, so you see here a systematic review of blended learning, trends, gaps, and future directions. And so if you open it, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. So here you see a systematic review, right? And so if you look at this, you will see that the study conducts a systematic review of systematic based on Prisma. All right. What this means is that this is a secondary review that collects a whole lot of papers within that area from a certain period, maybe from 2010 to 2020. It will look at all peer-reviewed relevant blended learning papers that have contributed significantly to that area. All right. And so they become this type of material here becomes what? Secondary sources. Is that okay? Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now I'll stop sharing. So right. So then we also have the tertiary sources. These are also like what? Summaries that we get from textbooks. All right. You can get your sources from textbooks, book chapters, and so on and so forth. Okay. But at your level, your focus must be what? On primary sources. Right. And where do we find them? You know, I'm talking about the sources, but where do we find them? What's happening? All right. We'll find them in databases. Okay. Databases like Google Scholar. All right. Like Scopus, like Web of Science, and then JSTOR. Let me give you show you where to get these sources from your literature. It's very important. Okay. Let me stop sharing. And so I took you to here. All right. Okay. So one of the very important sources where we can find our sources, one of the important databases is what? Google Scholar. How many of you have come across Google Scholar? Have you come across Google Scholar?
No.
How many have come across Google Scholar? Can I get some feedback quickly?
Get some feedback.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sorry?
Yes, sir.
I've- People.
All right. So take note of this. One of the key places or databases where you can find your primary and secondary and tertiary sources are in databases and repositories like this. So you can find them on Google Scholar. Here it is. Here you can find on any academic work, outputs, every paper, publications that good research has contributed to. They are all domiciled here. So you come over to Google Scholar. You want to do a research on what? Can somebody give me an idea of a research they want to do so that we can quickly go through this quickly? A quick one. Yes, quick one. What do you want to research on? Logistics operations in Ghana. Huh? You guys, you don't want to talk. All right. Logistics operations in Ghana. So what do you see? So this is very broad, all right? So you find logistics and supply chain management efficiency strategy for Ghana's mining industry. If I want to add mining, I can add mining. You know, you can come over to set your time here anytime. If you want to sort by date, if you want to review the articles, any type of articles, all right? What type? You can state the type of article that you want, you know, you want review articles, all right? Include citations, you know, anytime if you want to custom range the time you want the papers to show in, all right, you can custom range them and set it and so on. So you can choose from where to when. You can choose from 1980 to 2006. It will sort by date, the type of article you want. If it's a review article, all right, you indicate that any type, it would show, all right. So that is it with Google Scholar. Then there is also the Scopus, okay, Scopus. Here you find the Scopus database where there are a lot of journals, abstract and citation database. Okay, let's go there. Okay, so it's what? It's a comprehensive, Scopus is a comprehensive abstract and citation database for impact makers. All right, so all papers you are looking for in any author worth a sort who publishes in any good peer-reviewed journal will have their papers picked up by Scopus. And so if you want to go and check by author profiles, if you click on the author profile and you want to check about, you want to look for a particular author, you can put in the author's name. It would go and check. You would see whether the author is doing any good contribution. So if you want, you can put my name in there and you find out whether I have some papers there and so on and so forth, right? So these are some of the databases, all right? Okay. So take note, because you, when in your research, you would be using all right. Okay, so now we have spoken about the sources of your literature. All right, we have said that there are three sources: primary sources, secondary sources, and tertiary sources. And where to find these sources, we say what? You can check in Google Scholar databases, Scopus, Web of Science, JSTOR, okay? But also mind you that not everything you find online is credible, okay? So in conducting a literature review, you must what? Evaluate the journal, the methodology that was used, the recency of the publication, and then the relevance of the findings, okay? This is what would separate a researcher from a student. So you go into Google Scholar, you get all sort of papers. I'm saying that be mindful, not everything online there is credible. And so in conducting the literature review, you must what? Evaluate. First, look at the type of journal. There are a lot of predatory journals out there that contribute to little to nothing. They just take people's money and just publish all sort of rubbish. All right. So evaluate the journal and make sure that it's a high-ranking, high-impact journal. Look at the methodology of the research. The person purposed to conduct a research on faculty adoption, and his methodology is that he's investigating, he's interviewing students. Okay, is it possible that the outcome or the findings would be consistent with the methodology that was used? Obviously, no, right? So also look at the recency. You know, there are a lot of published articles that have outlived their findings, you know, that whose findings have been reviewed over time. Okay, so what probably was found out in 1990 within the blended learning space have over time been advanced. And so recency of the article is important, so that whilst you are reviewing blended learning adoption and you go way back into 1980 and say this is the foundation, all right, and Boampong 2023, 24, and 25 are more recent material that can fit or contribute meaningfully than you going back to the 1980s. Is that not the case? Right. So we should look out for the journal type, the methodology, the recency of the article, and then the relevance of it. Okay. Right. Now, in terms of the search strategy for your research literature review, all right, there is quite a strategy and a process to do that. And so the researchers would go through using certain keywords. So for example, in my blend, let me show you an example. So that is more practical than you just reading it.
Sir,
Yes,
please, I want to take you back a little to the purpose.
yes.
Please, can you give me the difference between the established context and then justify problem?
Say again.
Established context and then
The
justifying
context. Okay, hold on. Let me go back to it. All right. So they are saying that the purpose for the literature review is to establish a context, is to show where your study fits in the broader academic conversation. Where does your study fit? So there is a broader conversation of faculty blended learning adoption in Ghana. That conversation predates what you want to come and contribute to. All right. They have been having that conversation. Oh, the conversation is about the faculty who adopt blended learning if they are well motivated, or faculty blended adoption, they are looking at challenges, or they are looking at motivators, and so on and so forth. So that conversation. So your review, okay, must provide a certain context where it fits within that broader academic conversation. You get? Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. And then what again? You said justify the problem.
Yes, this the difference
It's just
between
yes. So the context is the conversations that are going on. You would have reviewed it, and so you find that you are wanting to contribute within a certain academic conversation, blended learning, adoption. All right. So the review would form the context and the basis to situate within that space. Now, the second purpose is to justifies your research problem. Because you will not only be just choosing a topic, right? It will help you to identify a gap. So you would have reviewed extensively within that space, okay? And you realize that there's a whole lot of conversations going on about what are the motivating factors. You see a lot of papers from China, from the UK, from the US, from Ghana, Africa, faculty adoption. They are talking about challenges. They are talking about the learning management systems that are used, the most preferred, and so on and so forth, right? Then all of a sudden, it will hit you and you notice that there is a certain gap that is not talking about what you perceive to be a problem in your institution that you want to go and investigate, all right? So it will help you to identify a gap. And the moment you identify your gap, it will help in justifying your research problem. Because where there is a gap, then there's a problem, isn't it? So I find out that in GCTU, faculty members are not using the Zoom link and then the LMS module management system to teach. All right, that's what I found out. Okay, that is my research problem. But is there a gap in literature in that area? Yes, when I went into the literature, the faculty blended learning adoption challenges and why they are not using it, I found out that in GCTU, whilst the research in Ghana and Africa and elsewhere talks about, work lecturer overload, technological challenges, and so on and so forth. In the case of GCTU, maybe it's different. So you identify a gap. The review would show you that here, there is a gap here that you must come to fill. All right. So it helps to justify your research problem. Sarah, is that okay?
Yes, sir. It is.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. So when you evaluate, so I said that there's a research strategy, and then you also have to evaluate your sources, all right? That you must check for the credibility of the journal, the methodology that was used, all right? We'll also look at the recency and then the relevance of that article and your review. Now, also comes a very critical component of the literature review. In fact, it is the heart of all the reviews, all right? Where you do the synthesis. This is where a lot of researchers actually fail, all right? Synthesis means you are not discussing studies one by one, okay? You are not discussing Antwi Boampong study, Adakwa et al. 2020 study, Brown Noble study. No. You are synthesizing means that what? You are connecting them. You can organize them according to what? Literature. So you can organize them thematically. Okay. You can organize your reviews methodologically, right? That of all the works that you have looked at, they have done the work, the methods that was used. So for example, you read about 10, 15 academic papers on blended learning adoption. You notice that their methodologies they used was purely quantitative. Okay. Out of the 18 papers that you reviewed, 15 used quantitative methods. Okay. Now, when you see that the papers within that area, their methodology is quantitative, do you immediately see an opportunity for a gap to be created if you want to yours to be qualitative? So therefore, you have identified that the body of knowledge within that space is quantitative. After 18 papers that talked about faculty blended learning adoption. So therefore, you identify a gap, and so your work, you want to embark on an exploration to do a qualitative research that would interview faculty members to get rich feedback from their lived experiences using blended learning adoption, okay? And so you can synthesize your review according to methodology, thematically, and also chronologically, okay? So an example of such synthesis can be what? Comparing findings. For example, now out of 20, 30 papers that you reviewed, the findings that came out were A, B, and C for this study and that study. So therefore, right, you also want to, your synthesis can identify trends. That the trend is that you have looked at papers mostly come from the Western countries. Papers coming from faculty blended learning adoption are more coming from advanced countries where technological advancements are precursors for faculty learning adoption. So there's a trend. So therefore, you want to look at why that trend is not being carried through in Africa or in Ghana. So you're identifying trends, right? You would also highlight contradictions within the body of knowledge. Whilst these researchers in University of Cambridge or University of Aalborg or University of Ghana say this, all right, they contradict each other. So therefore, you want your study to find positionality amongst them and see where your study would also fit to advance that body of knowledge too as well, right? Good. So in terms of synthesis, right? Instead of saying maybe author A found this and author B found that and so on, right? We can say when we understand how to do the synthesis by comparing findings, identifying trends, and highlighting contradiction. We can say, for example, studies on blended learning adoption, right, consistently highlight what? Perceived usefulness, whilst others do what? Emphasize on, say, institutional support as a stronger determinant, right? That is how synthesis is done. And that situates your review within the realms of what? Good academic what? Writing. Okay. So this is the example I was giving. So instead of saying maybe author A found this and author B found that, okay, you can say what? If you apply, look, if you apply the synthesis, all right, I said earlier here that you evaluate the sources that you get. When you check them for credibility, you look at their methodology and recency and relevance, you synthesize thematically, methodologically, chronologically, and so on, right? And you synthesize by comparing the findings, you identify trends and highlight contradictions. It makes it easier so that you are able to pick to do a synthesis by not saying Boampong found that or Adakwa too found that. So if there's a synthesis, you are putting a strand to it. And so either than saying any of these, you can, in terms of synthesis, you can say studies on, say, technology adoption, consistently highlight, you can lump them together by way of what they say, okay, whilst others, emphasize, so that the synthesis is more academic and straightforward. Is that okay? Now, this brings us to something very, very important. We'll look at the theoretical and conceptual frameworks in a literature review. Well, often we hear or see theoretical frameworks, theory and conceptual frameworks that are used within literature review in thesis and so on and so forth. What are they? And what is their purpose? Okay. So first of all, we first would have to understand what a theory is, and then what a theoretical framework is, and what a conceptual framework too is. Okay. So if you can help us, Sarah, read.
Sir, please, can you make it a little visible?
A little bit visible.
Yeah.
Let me increase the font size. Is that okay, or it's too big?
Yeah, it's okay. So, what is theory? What is a theory? A theory is a systematic explanation of a phenomenon. It is not just an idea. It is a logically developed set of concepts and relationships that help us understand, explain, and sometimes predict reality. Key features of the
Okay, you hold on. So, mind you, in the literature review part of your research, I said that you will be looking into what is known, right? How it is known, right? And then
Yeah.
what is unknown.
Yeah.
Any good research must be bounded or grounded on a strong theoretical foundation. That is why you must understand what a theory is. You recall earlier in our second lecture, we said there are two types of approaches to doing research. There is the inductive research, and then there is what other research too. There is the inductive research, and there's what other research? People. And there is deductive research. Is that not it?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So what is a deductive research? Any volunteer quickly? Deductive research. And what is inductive research? My people. So inductive, you work towards theory. Deductive, you work from theory. Is that not it?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes. We are not reading.
So
People are not reading.
we are reading.
Yes. So inductive is without research that builds theory. And then deductive is one that what contributes or extends theory. So you are working from theory. And so it's important that in our review, we understand, oh goodness, the light just came on. I'm sweating like a pregnant fish. Oh goodness. Jeez. I hope it doesn't go off again. Right. So let's continue, my people. So what is a theory? In that sense, we need to understand what a theory is so that we can make it into our very foundation of our research literature review process. So we are saying that a theory is a systematic explanation of a phenomenon. All right? It is not just an idea, but it is a logically developed set of concepts and relationships that helps us understand, explain, and sometimes predict reality. And so there are several theories that abound. Theories of relativity. There are several theories. Socio-cognitive theory, technology adoption theory, frameworks, and so on and so forth, right? Key features of a theory is that what it explains why something happens. It builds on evidence and prior research. It helps it contains concepts, which are the variables and explains their relationships, right? And it also provides testable or applicable. It is testable or applicable in different contexts, all right? And so, for example, in the field of blended learning or technology adoption, we have what we call the constructivist theory, all right? It explains that what learning occurs when individuals actively construct knowledge, all right? So the theoretical foundation of my teaching is constructivist, okay? In that constructivist theory, it says that, or it explains that what learning occurs when individuals actively construct the knowledge together. And so what I do in my class is to apply these principles, put students in groups so that they co-create the knowledge together. I remember I told you that that is what we're going to do. That is a constructivist theory, all right? And so if I want to go into blended learning adoption, and I'm looking for a theory on how students would co-construct knowledge, I would not fall far away from going to look for constructivist theories. And in that constructivist theory, we are saying that theories explain why something happened. Constructivism can show you why knowledge is co-created when the individuals work together, okay? That constructivist theory can build evidence. There is evidence of prior research that shows that this actually is the case. And again, to using constructivist theory, there are variables in there, all right? For example, that talks about technology mediation, all right? Variables such as teacher presence online, all right? Okay. These concepts are testable. If you pick them and you apply them to a certain context, you are able to test whether the theory is true or whether the theory is false. All right. So that theory then becomes the foundation for your research. Is that clear? So there are several examples of theories that abound. So there is a technology adoption theory, and so on and so forth. So that is it with theory, right? Then we have what we call the theoretical framework, where it's a, hold on, please. Yes, who is it? Yes. Yeah, hello. Sorry about that. Somebody just distracted me, a mechanic. Right. So then we have a theoretical framework, which is quite different from a theory. Okay. A theoretical framework is a structured representation of the theories that underpin a study and guides the interpretation of your findings. All right. What does it do? Let me explain it. It's a theoretical framework would help connect your research to existing knowledge. It would show which theories you are using, okay, and explain how those theories shape your analysis, okay. It is the intellectual lens through which you interpret your data, in which you structure your analysis, all right, and then help justify your arguments. All right. So what does it do? You said it helps to connect your research to existing knowledge. It helps shows you which theories you are using, and that is the theoretical framework. It helps explain how those theories shape your analysis. All right. So, for example, in a research that I'm doing on FGM, all right, I've used the African feminist perspective, okay, and then critical human rights perspective. These are two theories. Under each of the theories, the African feminist perspective helps you to understand what there are variables of culture, gender, and local agency, okay? And then there is the critical human rights perspective, which helps you to critique what global rights discourse and state power. Now, whilst these are two individual theories that you are using, if you combine them, you have a theoretical framework where you have African feminist perspective and and critical human rights perspective combined as an analytical lens. And so the theoretical framework is the combination of theories that you use as a framework to help interpret and help you do your analysis. Okay. But what is the relationship between theory and a theoretical framework? Okay. The relationship is this. You should think of the theory as a toolbox, that there are a whole lot of existing theories. All right. But then when you decide to pick one or two out of them and you combine them, they become tools that you have selected, and how you use them becomes the theoretical framework. All right. Or if you like, a theory that you use will become the theory that you use will be your general explanation. And then your theoretical framework would be how you apply that explanation in your study. Is that okay? So let me give you further explanation in terms of the purpose of a theoretical framework. A theoretical framework serves as a guide to your study. All right. So the moment you put these 2 or 3 frameworks that you want to combine and use for your work, it serves as the guide that determines what you look for, what you ignore, how you interpret your data, right? And then it also provides an analytical lens, okay? It answers how, for example, how will I interpret what I find? So, for example, on the FGM case that I was looking at, so if you picked in your theoretical framework, you are looking at a human rights lens. So if you are looking at violation and so on, it will provide you a framework on how to interpret what you find. All right. It also links study to existing knowledge. So it shows your work is not random, and then positions your study within a certain academic debate, right? And this is what is very critical in terms of what examiners are looking out for immediately that they pick your research proposal or they look at your
Sir, please, we can't hear you.
So we can't hear you.
all right, the framework,
Sir, we
helps
didn't
to
hear
just.
anything.
Are you there?
Yeah, we didn't hear anything. The network
Why?
went off.
We lost you at a point.
You were breaking at a point.
Sorry about that. So at which point, where should I go back? I was talking about the purpose of a theoretical framework. I mentioned that it serves as a guide to the study. Did you hear that one?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right. And I also said that it provides an analytical lens. It helps answers questions of how you interpret what you find. And I said that it also links your study to existing knowledge, right? By way of showing that your work is not random, right? It positions your study within a certain academic debate. And it also helps to justify your arguments, such that, or the claims you make will not be attributed to your personal opinions, but it helps you to ground your claims in theory, because the frameworks are generated out of theories, right? And it makes your findings or your arguments academically defensible. And it also shapes your data analysis. And so with that said, the relationship between theory and theoretical framework, I said that look at theory as your toolbox, and then your theoretical framework as the tools that you select and how you use them, right? Good. We'll do a breakout activity here. And this is going to be a very long one. I bet that I'm not too sure if we should do it right now, but it's going to be really extensive. Let me see if I can continue the lecture. Yeah, so let's do this. I'll skip the breakout for now. What time are we finishing this lecture?
5 p.m.
At 5.
5? Oh, at 5?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then the breakout is a long one. We can't do that. I would share the breakout with you so that you will do that as a group assignment and submit. Oh, hold on. Task. You'll be developing conceptual frameworks and theoretical frameworks. Okay. Um, so let's keep the breakout for now and then go to the next 3 or 4 slides where we can wrap up and continue. So basically, we have been talking about the literature review process and what goes into it. We have looked at what goes into it. We have looked at theoretical frameworks. We have looked at theory and noun, and we have looked at how to do the synthesis in the literature review process. Now, we come to a very important part here, which is paraphrasing. Now, oftentimes, the struggle is on how to conduct a good literature review. That students would pick their ideas directly without paraphrasing and not citing properly. And so in conducting the literature review, we are saying here that when you pick the ideas, you must rewrite them in your own language and how you understand it. All right? Maintaining the original meaning of the author, but you must cast it in your own language, all right, so that you avoid plagiarism. Is that okay? In doing so, then we are doing what we call paraphrasing, all right? So when you pick the materials, rewrite them in your own ideas, how you understand them, maintain their meaning, then stay out of and try to avoid plagiarism. There are several referencing styles that are available. We can't have time to look at them, but you go and read them on your own. There is the Harvard APA style. There is the in-text citations for literature reviews. All right. And then there is also, well, at the end of it also, there is also your reference lists. Okay. Common mistakes in doing literature reviews. We describe instead of analyzing the text. We do very poor sourcing, get very bad sources of literature, and we review. There are no synthesis coming out of it, and then we also apply very weak frameworks. All right. Now, the key takeaway from this lecture is that what literature review is an analysis and synthesis and positioning within the larger body of knowledge. So that is it by way of the lecture for today. I have shared your group task. There is not enough time to do this, but break into your groups, do them privately, and just as we have been doing, please submit to me by Wednesday, 12 o'clock. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Sir, please switch off the groups. Is it the one you divided us into in the face-to-face? Or
Or your main groups.
okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So for the main groups, some of us we don't have the group, like we're not part of the group. So
They're not part of the main groups. So what do you want?
The-
Do you want to maintain your face-to-face groups?
so anyone you decide on, then maybe you
All right.
allocate
So
us
let's
to-
maintain our face-to-face groups. Since we had the opportunity to start working from there, it would be fine if we kept to it.
Some of us were not present at the face-to-face. So
Okay. How many are we here? There are 17. We are 16 of us here, right? Okay. So how many were you in there? So how many groups we have in the class now, Sarah?
Please, the face-to-face, I think we were just 3 groups.
Okay, we're just 3 groups.
Yes.
And what's our class size?
Stephen, please help me. Is it 15?
Yeah, 15.
15. Yeah.
Okay, 15. All right. And so in the scenario case that I've given you, there are 4 cases. And so we can form
Sir,
4 groups, right?
Okay.
sir,
Yeah, so Sarah, form 4 groups. And then let's apply the scenarios. There's A, B, C, and D.
the groups are many.
Your task will be to complete to identify a theory. Okay, you develop a theoretical framework, and then you also develop a conceptual framework. Your expected output will be, to produce a theory with an explanation, a theoretical framework with application, and then a conceptual framework. Next week, when we meet, we'll do a presentation, 2 minutes each. Okay, so that we become familiar with how to develop theoretical frameworks and conceptual frameworks. Then we can move on to methodology, and then we will build systematically with the methodology. We will look at the various methodologies that apply, all right? And then we go into our analysis and then discussion and conclusions as we begin to wrap up for the service. Any questions for today?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
My own is not a question, it's about the group. We
Yeah.
have which is 2 in each group, which is for every courses.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you, boss. Steven.
Okay, please hold on. Yeah, hello.
Can you hear Steven?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
We can.
What's his concern with the group?
Yeah, please, my concern is we have groups already, 2 each in a group for every courses, because we don't want to get confused with so many groups. So we form a group that we have 2 in each groups. So it's left with I think justice. because he didn't join us early, so we couldn't get a group. So I think we'll just find a group, then add him to it. Then they'll be in three in a group.
Yeah, the problem is I have 4 scenarios that I want 4 groups. I don't want more than, so if it's 2, if you are 15, yeah, that would make me about 10 groups or about 5 groups. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's break it down to 4 in a group so that we can get 4 groups to apply themselves to. So there will be group A, B, C, and D. Then group A will be answering scenario A, group B will be answering scenario B, C, and D respectively. Is that
okay? Okay.
So Sarah, let the groups know which of the alphabets they represent so that they can apply. Okay.
Okay, sir.
All right. Any questions? All right. So if there are no questions, I'll leave you here today. I
Sir,
wish
please.
you a good. Yep.
Sir, please, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I was asking about the article. Let's say you are working on a research and you are trying to get an article. So what is the correct date range of the article do you think is best for us to get when we are trying to do a research on it?
What's up?
Right. That's a very good question. So you notice that I mentioned that in the recency is a key factor, isn't it? And so mostly for me, when I'm reviewing articles or when I'm assessing papers, recency for me is 5 years. Right? So I look at material between 2021 to 2026. All right. There are some instances where I will tend to accept some articles that go back. There are some authors or researchers who are respected in the field. They are pioneers. So, for example, if you are doing a case study research, you will definitely come across the godfather of case study research. Who knows who that person is? So you get to know, you come to meet Yin. All right. So you get Yin. Yin goes way back into the 60s. If you are doing grounded theory, you will come across Glaser, Strauss, and Glaser. All right. Strauss and Glaser were the founders or pioneers of grounded theory in 1967. So subsequently, they developed the theory over time and contributed a lot in that area. And so you find Strauss and Corbin, Chalmers and Corbin, Chalmers and Strauss, 1980, 1999, 91, 2000, until probably when he passed away in 2015. When you make reference to such grandfathers, it's acceptable. But then, in terms of a good review, you would want to have recency within the range of between 4 to 5 years. Okay, 4 to 5 years. Is that all right? Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any more questions?
So yes, next week is Easter, so I think we are not meeting.
Oh, next week is Easter.
Yes, please.
Oh dear. All right. Okay, you are right. So let's see how it goes. We are at Easter, but you can send I'll send notes ahead of it so that you can read and prepare for methodology anytime we come. How about that?
So that's okay with us.
Yes. So right away, I'm sending you this my slides. Did I send you the reading material?
No, please.
Comprehensive notes for my cooking. Let me just do that before we sign off so that we don't forget to do that. Business research methods. So I've sent it. Are you missing any of my notes? Let me know so that I would send it to you and my slides. You have them up to date. Okay, so I've shared out to you. I've shared today's slides to you. Did you get the ethics one last week?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you got the ethics, yes. All right, so we are on course. Okay, all right. So I've shared today's one too with you. If there are no further questions, we'll bring the class to an end today. I'll see you next week. No, next 2 weeks. Enjoy your weekend, enjoy your Easter, and bye for now.
Bye.